there, fictional friends, and welcome to another episode of Fully Booked. I'm Megan.
And I'm Shireen.
And we are finally kind of getting back into, children's lit this week.
I'm, so confused
I know,
as
you're
to what
like,
our theme
what are we
is.
talking about this
I know, I'm just like, whatever, Megan, you tell me what we're talking about, we'll talk.
The first few weeks we actually did, the first couple of weeks of the month, we actually did talk about children's lit, thank God. But then, It Ends With Us came out, so we had to talk about that, and now we're kind of getting back into it, and then next week we're kind of going off on a different spiral as well. Sorry. It's just there's a lot of adaptations coming out.
It'd be like that sometimes.
Yeah, and we want to talk about that. So we are kind of getting back into the children's lit theme this week, but obviously also we're talking about it regularly over on the website too, so you guys can check out Fully Booked CA, which is where all of the coverage of all of the types of articles that you could be looking for are. There are lists, editorials, reviews,
you can even go answer some questions.
Yeah, you
if
can.
You want to put your input.
If you want your input.
You want to put your input.
Input your input.
You want to put your put.
Oh, man.
I think we need to change the section to be put your put.
Put your put. Instead of leave your comment or whatever it is. Oh, we're a little loopy today. I think we have too much stuff to do, and we already just recorded a really long episode. Yeah. We just talked about It Ends With Us for an hour, and now we're back into it for something a little lighter, and we're
So we apologize in advance.
Yeah. It's going to be a bit...
whatever this is going to be.
Not the usual, that's for sure. Yeah, it's fine. We don't have to take ourselves seriously all the time.
We do 3% of the time. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, especially you.
Oh yeah, I
know. So this week, getting back into the children's lit sphere, we revisited. Well, actually, you'd never watched the movie, which is weird.
Yeah, but I read the book.
Everybody's read the book.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this week, obviously, you've read the title, so you know what we're here for. But we're talking about the 2002 adaptation of Tuck Everlasting, which I feel is just everybody's middle grade. Everybody remembers this when you were 11, you read this book.
Oh yeah, and it was your first ooh, there's kissing.
Yes.
And you're just ooh, boys. and then you just, it's the gateway drug of Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants.
Yes.
And all sorts of other books where you're ooh, there's kissing.
Well, there's sex in Sisterhood of the Traveling
That's
Pants.
true,
But
yeah. I remember reading that not long after I read this one, and I was
yeah, B and Amber, and the sequels as well, and stuff like that. It's it's a pretty regular thing that happens in that series because it's coming of age stuff. So that's it. The movie was adapted in 2002, and it's based on the 1975 novel. I know, right?
What?
Yeah, 1975.
And they still had us reading this in school? Jesus Christ, update your curriculum.
Oh my God, but fuck, this is what happens all the time. We were just having a conversation about this. We took the dog for a walk this morning, and we were just talking about, at what point do we stop, only studying, 17th, 18th, and 19th century stuff and move into something more modern? It's getting boring.
It is boring, especially at university. It's we're going to study 17th century metaphysical poetry, and you're barf.
Yeah, it's too much, guys. It's too much.
1975.
Yep, 1975 by Natalie Babbitt.
And no shade, but Jesus.
Yeah, it's a lot. No, I agree with you. Also, I haven't looked into this at all, but apparently this novel has actually been adapted for film twice.
What?
Once in 1981. I had no fucking idea. I know. Your face right now was me a day ago when I was wait, what? Yeah.
What?
Yeah. I've never heard of it. I had no idea. Let's look it up. Just
please hold
for fun. Oh my gosh, it exists. Yep. 1981. That's crazy.
Anybody we know was in it?
It was a TV movie.
Aw, when they made Dirty Dancing for ABC and they did Amber Town. Wait, what was her name?
No,
wrong one. What's her name?
I forget. It doesn't matter.
Where they did her dirty.
Little Miss Sunshine.
Yeah.
It was adapted into a TV film apparently, which was released in 1980 in New York, Channel 4 in New York. I don't know. Wow, crazy. I did not know that was a thing.
Anywho.
We learn something new every day, but here we are. Yes, so we're talking about the Disney 2002 adaptation, which I think most people are more familiar with. If you think of the adaptation of this novel, that's what you're thinking of.
Yeah, I can still see You know, it's funny because I can still see the cover of
Yeah.
the movie in the video store.
Yes, which is
when
weird
it
because you
came
never
out.
watched it.
I never watched it.
I don't know why.
And it's so weird because it's like I read the book.
Yeah.
Why did I never rent the movie?
I don't know. And also, like, it would be, especially because, like, you would read the book and also, like, this type of story, this would have been so up your alley to
I
rent
know.
and watch this.
I remember loving this book.
I just feel like this would have, for you,
Yeah.
I feel like this would have been, like, one of your comfort movies that you would watch, like, over
Yeah.
and over and over and over again.
That's why it's so odd. Like, I'm, like, past it now. Like, now the fact that I've watched it now, it's too late.
Yeah.
So it's not a comfort movie.
No.
But I feel like back in the day, if I had rented it,
Yeah.
it makes no sense.
I don't know. Do you know what? If you had actually been able to watch Gilmore Girls when it was originally
Yeah.
on, you would have rented the shit out of this movie.
Oh, 100%, because Rory's
Because
in
Alexis
it.
Bledel is the main character.
Yeah.
So for anyone who's like unfamiliar, like I would be surprised because it just feels like one of those either you've read the book or you've already seen this movie, like one or the other or both.
Yeah.
Like a lot of us, like myself, obviously. Although granted, I will say I only saw the movie once before we watched it for this episode.
That's so funny. Yeah.
It just, the book stuck with me, the movie did not.
Yeah.
So, you know.
I mean, the movie was very, like,
Slow
neither
moving.
here nor there.
It was very slow moving. It's true. Like it's
Somebody fell asleep.
It did it. We're blaming pregnancy for that, even though she used to fall asleep all the time anyway.
Yeah, but not in the middle of it.
You're gonna tell everyone.
I gotta tell this story. So we put the movie on yesterday around 2 p.m. And I'm watching it, and then I must have dozed off.
Yeah, you
clearly.
did.
And then Megan gets a phone call, and I can hear her talking on the phone to her fiance. And I, like, heard her, and I'm like, Megan, what happened? Because I could hear her being like, oh, my God. Oh, no. Oh, my God.
Roof leak issues, by the way,
leak.
and buildings are so fucking, annoying to deal with. Anyway, sorry, continue the story.
And so I'm like, oh, Megan, what happened? And so she started to tell me, she's like, so the roofing guys are coming. And I'm like, uh-huh. And then about 30 seconds later, I was like, and so I woke up again later, and I'm like, did I fall asleep halfway through her telling me what happened? And I'm like, maybe I shouldn't say anything because I feel really bad. Like, who falls asleep in the middle of their best friend telling them something when they're in the same room? And she's like, yeah, you did.
Oh, you did. About, like, I don't know, like a third of the way through my explanation of what I had just been on the phone about, all I heard was snoring. And I was like,
way to be like, oh, your story is not interesting.
I was just like, oh, there she goes. Never mind.
I would have thrown something at me. I would have been like, you bitch, wake up.
This is because you're mean and I'm not.
Anyway, sorry.
And everybody thinks I'm the mean one
No,
because of
she
my
really
resting
isn't.
bitch face in public. Everybody's like, oh, Megan's like unapproachable. But really, I'm like not like that at all.
She's like the least judgmental, just nicest person ever. But like she's got this like do not talk to me face. And
It serves me really well at bars and stuff, though.
yeah,
if
but
I'm
like
honest.
then
Like,
I have to be like, no, Megan does like you. She's just shy.
she just doesn't talk about things all the time. God, it's like nobody knows what an introvert is. Just
Oh, man.
fucking figure it out, people. It's not that complicated.
Find yourself an extrovert who can explain it for you.
Who can explain it for you? A lot of extroverts have introverted best
Oh,
friends. It's not
yeah, they
weird.
do.
It's actually quite common.
It is, yeah.
Okay, we are
sorry.
not talking about this
No.
movie. I'm sorry. It is a little bit boring, to
It
be
is.
fair.
It
so,
is.
Anyway, so just, oh wait, no, I didn't check. That's true. Sorry. Tuck Everlasting currently has a score of 6.6 out of 10 on IMDb and 60% on Rotten Tomatoes. Yeah, it's very middle of the road.
Yeah, I mean, it's like one of those movies that you just, I'm not going to remember this. Like, if you ask me what
Agreed.
happened in this movie, like, a year from now, I'll be like, I have no
You'd be
idea.
like, I don't know. You'd be like, I kind of remember the book, so, like, I can piecemeal it, like, I can kind of piece it together, but you're not going to remember it. And that's it. It was just, it was very much one of those books. It was probably one of the earliest books that I read where I was like, ooh, romance. Like, there was, like, an aspect of, like, that's it, like, romantic love between younger characters in it, and, like, not in an overly childish kind of way, because there are, like, pretty adult themes in terms of, like, the subject matter and the material itself. Brief overview. So there's like a bit of a time difference because they wanted to keep things, I think, more modern in the film. So the film is set in 1914.
Yeah.
The novel actually was set in 1880.
Huh.
Yeah, which is interesting. So I think they wanted to keep things like a little bit more modern, that's fine. So it's set in 1914. It follows a character named Winifred Foster. She's 15 years old. And again, in the book, she's 10. So also different. And I can understand based on
How old is Jessie in the book?
like 17.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's weird. Yeah, because she stays with them for like a while.
Oh, right. It's not
So
like
she gets older.
It's not like in the movie.
And no, and then that's why he wants her to like do the thing when she's 17. Anyway, okay, doesn't matter. Sorry,
we're
no, it's okay, it's fine. So she's 15 years old and she lives in a small town, very strict household, and basically her dad essentially like owns the entire town.
Yeah, he's rich.
Yeah, they're like rich, and her mom's like a very like stick up the butt kind of.
Wishes she lived in Paris. Like
Yeah,
the rest of us.
Yeah, very old school, uptight kind
Yeah.
of thing, and wants her daughter to be very proper. And Winnie gets very bored with that very easily, and isn't really able to interact very much with the other kids in town. Like, it sucks. It's boring. Her mom decides, I guess, because she feels like she's being too wild, even though, God, she doesn't do anything, this girl.
She's not allowed to.
No,
All she
she's not
does is
allowed-
hang out by, like, it's funny because it's like their property is like fenced
Yes,
in.
yeah, they have a big gate.
And it's like she's like, I think it's supposed to like symbolize like a cage, because it's like metal bars.
Oh, yeah.
But like Winnie is always hanging by the metal bars and like looking out into the forest. Like,
She's
into
bored as
her
shit. I don't
freedom.
blame her.
Yeah, I know.
So anyway, because her mom decides she's like wild in some way, which like, hello, hi, I would like to understand how. She decides that she's going to send her off to like this really strict, really shitty boarding school.
Oh, that's right.
And Winifred's like, absolutely not. Like, everything's supposed to be horrible over there. It's basically like a prison. Like, there's no way I'm going to do that. So she runs away.
Okay, I gotta put in the funniest run. Like,
It's not a good run.
I love Alexis Bledel.
I know.
But I noticed this even in Gilmore Girls. She's got a bit of a windmill run here. And like,
it's like that episode of Friends where Phoebe goes running with Rachel in the park. Yeah.
Exactly. And she's just got the best run. And it doesn't help that she's wearing these like really big
Flowy dresses.
And so there's like this like windmill ghost like kind of running down towards
If it were
the edge
dark
of the
out, it would actually be really spooky.
Anyway.
It's true. It's a little flaily, isn't it? Just like her limbs kind of do whatever they want to when she's running.
It's probably because she's just really tall and she was like still kind of, growing
gangly
into
or something.
herself.
She would have been. She was probably like 18 or 19 when she made this movie.
Was
so
she?
probably 2002 it came
Like a
out.
baby face.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
she's young. This was like around the same time the Gilmore Girls premiered, also.
Well,
so like
1998 was when Gilmore Girls started.
Okay, so it was a few years later. Yeah. All right. Well, that makes sense. So she would have been like 20-ish.
Yeah.
Anyway. So she goes running off into the woods and she comes across a young boy who's drinking from like a small spring underneath a really large tree.
Yeah.
And he is very surprised to see her because I guess nobody wanders into the middle of the woods in this town. I don't know.
Yeah, she's only really been walking for like 20 minutes.
It doesn't seem like it's been that long.
It's like, okay.
Yeah, that's it. And when she like sees him, they have like a weird interaction where he's like, "Whoa, who are you? What are you doing here?" And she's like, "What do you mean?"
I own this.
She's like, "My dad like owns this place." And she's like, "What are you doing here?" I'm just gonna like, if you don't like leave me alone, I'm gonna like tell him basically. So he's like, "What? No, don't do that." So she
Oh, sorry.
he kind of kidnaps her.
Well, his brother does.
Oh, Miles does.
He like skulks out from behind a tree and like whisks her away.
And he's like,
on
"We
a
can't
horse.
let her go."
And like it's like gallop, gallop, gallop. I'm like, what am I watching? Like, what is this?
So we had only seen we'd seen some stuff of like the boys earlier on. Like they've obviously been traveling. They come back into town to meet their mom, May Tuck, played by Sissy Spacek, which like I was like, God, there's a lot of people in this movie.
Oh, yeah.
Like, like Jesse's played by Jonathan Jackson, who I guess wouldn't have been a big deal in 2002, but then he went on to do Nashville for like the entire run of that series as well, which is mostly what I know him from. So
I
yeah,
haven't seen
weird.
that show.
Oh yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
it got weird later, but it's pretty good.
They all do.
Oh,
Eventually.
they do, don't they? When they run for too long is the problem. So Miles, his older brother, was with him too. He's like the dark and gloomy one, and Jesse's like the happy-go-lucky one of the two of them. Those are basically their character traits.
Hey, it's me and you.
Yeah. Miles whisks her off back to the like small sort of cabin that they have, like literally like way out in the middle of the woods, basically, where their mom and dad are. Angus, that's it. They call him Tuck, their dad.
Yeah, their last name is Tuck.
Yes.
They're the Tucks.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
They call him Tuck, but anyway, his name is Angus Tuck, and their mom's name is May. Then there is Miles and Jesse, and so they bring her out there, and she's basically been kidnapped. So she's like, "What the fuck is going on?"
Swiss Family Robinson.
Kind of. But then is, like, quickly kind of also realizes, like they're very nice to her. Like, May is very sweet to her and gives her clothes to wear and lets her, like, bathe and everything like that. Like, no one is really trying to do anything like kill her or anything like that, but they decide that she should probably stay with them for a little while, and she kind of, I think, explains her circumstance to a degree, like what's happened, and why she ran away. And as she spends time with them, she really grows close to the family. She really starts to, like, love them like she loves the parents, and her and Jesse start to form a very strong connection.
Canoodle.
Which also, this always happens in these stories where young girl, I'm thinking of Twilight, obviously, 17-year-old girl falls in love with a whatever
immortal
100-and-something-year-old boy, and the
17-year-old.
and the 100-and-something-year-old boy is always really happy with a girl with the brain of a 17-year-old, and I have questions about that.
Like, it makes no sense in any of the, and like, I was saying this to you when we were watching it, I'm like, oh shit, this is the OG Twilight without the vampires.
Here are the Cullens.
Here are the Cullens in their little, old-timey attire in the woods.
Yep, there's Bella,
There's Bella. But like, take this one as an example. Okay, you could make the argument that in Twilight he's a vampire, so his psyche doesn't keep developing, which I think is not true.
No, that's not true. There's no way that's true.
I've heard people make that argument, but like in this one, he's not a vampire. He's literally just living forever.
Yep.
And he is going and exploring the world with with his brother.
So that's also why I'm like, really? and you never developed any tastes for, like, slightly more mature women within that sphere?
Yeah, because you're in your 100-something years
He's
old.
104 years old, he says.
How long have you been 17?
A while.
Yeah, so it's just really confusing to me as to why he'd be like, yeah, this chick who's like 10 in the book. Like,
oh my
this
gosh,
is where it's
yeah.
at. Like, okay, groomer.
I know. It's weird. This is why some of that immortal stuff.
Yeah.
I'm like, ugh. When you tell me that this vampire has been a vampire for like 10 or 15 years, I'm like, okay.
That makes sense.
Fine.
Yeah.
Fine. But when the vampire is like, I'm 377 years old, I'm like, okay.
Why would you be interested in a human? Like, you wouldn't want to have a conversation with a human.
Yeah, what would you even talk about?
It's like being like, hey, this person who's 45 has fallen in love with a 10-year-old.
Yeah, and you're like, Not
let's
only
call
is it
the
illegal,
popo.
it's weird.
It's weird.
It's very weird.
Yeah.
What do you have in common, 45-year-old man? Like, yeah, no.
Oh, I said it, and now I'm like,
ew. Gross. Anyway, yeah, we're moving on from that. That was just the question that I have to posit every time there's a story like this. I'm always like, this is strange, right? Like, this isn't normal. So anyway, she spends, I think she spends like a good couple of months with them or something. It's a while.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. This is where I fell asleep.
Yeah, but she spends like a good like while with them, and she like falls in love with them essentially, and through spending all this time with them, Jesse winds up telling her the story as she's falling in love with him, which is basically that by drinking one day that's like 100 odd years ago, essentially, or a little less than that, probably like 85 or 87 years prior, they had come to the area and were looking for somewhere to settle down, and they were very like thirsty. They needed food, they needed water. They came across this spring, and everyone drank from the spring. The whole family did, the horse did, except the cat.
Aww,
the cat did not.
Aw, kitty.
Yeah. The cat did not drink from the spring.
Ozzy, when I tell you to drink something, this is what I mean.
He's just lifted his head from the pillow like, what?
What?
What the fuck are you talking about? So anyway, so Winnie learns all of this, and at first she's like flabbergasted because she's like, wait, what? You guys are just like going to live forever? What do you mean? And he's like, yeah, we couldn't figure it out until like, and then Miles very gloomily explains that they couldn't figure it out until they realized that that's it. Everyone had drunk from it, but not the cat. And the cat got old and died of old age. However, they never aged. And Miles' whole backstory and why he, has a more negative feeling about all of this is that after all of this had happened, he met a woman, he fell in love with her, they got married, they had 2 kids, but again, he never aged, and his wife did, and his children got bigger, and it was weird. And you have to think about this from a 1914 whatever perspective. Well, not even 1914, or that's it, like 80 some odd years before that. So in the 1800s perspective of how freaked out people would have been. And people would be freaked out by that now, let alone back then. People were very religious. They were very superstitious. Yeah. And so, of course, his wife took the children and left because she was like, oh, the devil's in them and, bad things, and Satan. I need to leave. So she left him.
They got lucky that she didn't call the witch hunters on them.
Yeah, I guess that's true. She could have called the Witchfinder General or whatever.
That was a thing.
Yeah. I think it was in the 1600s, really? Actually.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Weird, but true. Crazy facts that you find out when you look into the Salem witch trials and stuff. So... and basically ever since then, it appears that all it takes is one drink from this spring, and you just automatically live forever.
Wow.
Which is wild.
That is wild.
Yeah, it's crazy. The family beg her not to tell anyone about it because they don't want a ton of people to come looking for it and for this to suddenly become almost an epidemic. Yeah. And part of the reason for this is kind of part of the moral of the book itself as well, is sort of it posits that question of yes, but would that really be a good thing? And Angus, the father, has a tendency to reiterate that on a regular basis. You think it will be great, but this isn't necessarily all it's chalked up to be. Yeah. Simply living in the same way forever, having to hide who we are from the general public so people don't realize that we're not aging.
Right.
Having to, move to different places, pretend to be someone who we're not, never really
come to high school 75 million times.
Thanks, Cullen family. And college. I think some of them, the older ones, have done college too, haven't they?
Yeah, I think even Edward had gone and a medical degree.
Wouldn't that be boring as shit? You wouldn't just do high school forever. You'd have to go do something else.
Oh my God, can you imagine? You'd just do everything.
You would. You would just be a forever student, really.
Pretty much. Yeah. That sounds fun.
Yeah, you'd be fine with that.
I'd love that.
Yeah, you'd love that. So they convince her, please don't tell anyone kind of thing. And she promises them that she'll keep their secret. But she's also, of course, her family is still looking for her. Her parents are still looking for her. And at the same time, she had one brief encounter with this person at the beginning, but there's this guy, played by Ben Kingsley, who they just call the man in the yellow suit, who has been tracking Miles and Jesse.
Sorry, every time I was hearing this throughout the movie, I was like the guy with Curious George?
Oh my God.
That's the man in the yellow hat.
Yeah, different. Same, but different.
Yeah.
He's been tracking the boys since they were in London or Paris or something, traveling. He's been tracking them overseas because his whole backstory essentially is that, if I'm not mistaken, it was his grandmother told him a story from back in the day where she met this woman in an insane asylum who it turns out was Miles' wife. Who wound up in an insane asylum later in life after she had left him because she went crazy because her husband wasn't aging, and that was wild. So that turned into a whole thing, and he basically, he heard the story from his grandmother and became obsessed with finding this spring so that he could drink from it and, live forever, essentially. I think once you get past a certain age...
I was just thinking that.
There's no point.
I was like, dude wasn't that young, though. Yeah. And then once the aches and pains start setting in, what the point?
You want that forever? Why?
Why?
I don't know. So anyway, he's been on a mission to track this down, and so he goes looking for them, he tracks them, and he's the person who basically leads the members of the town and Winnie's parents back to her. So they take her back, and Miles and Jesse take off, and Angus and May, actually no, just May, sorry, is arrested for kidnapping.
Angus is arrested too because he sets the house on fire.
That's right. He sets the house on fire. Yes, that's true. Sorry. So they're arrested and they're going to be hanged.
Well, she is because she kills Ben.
Because she kills Ben King, the man in the yellow suit, because he's threatening Winnie and basically using her. So she hits him over the head with a shovel. Yeah. So that's it. So she's going to be hanged, and Angus has been arrested. But Miles and Jesse have put together a plan to break their parents out of prison. And so because he's also he goes to see Winifred at night. Jesse does, and he's like, I need you to help us get her out. We can't do it if we go to the gallows. like she won't die.
Yeah, like that's the biggest problem.
That's
here.
the big thing for them, is that not only do they not age, but they cannot be killed.
Yeah, like
so
they
like
get, I think
Jesse gets shot.
Yeah.
Jesse gets shot. They've also had other instances previously in which someone has been like grievously injured. Like he fell like 30 feet out of a tree and was totally fine. He fell right on his neck. Like he should have died in many instances. I think Miles has had a couple of those as well.
Yeah.
And so there have been all these times in which one of them or several of them should have died and they have not.
Right.
So it's not just like it's not just their ages that they're hiding. It's also the fact that like they can't be injured or killed, essentially. And if they, because if they found that out, like they would lock May up forever, wouldn't they, to experiment on her and stuff?
And then they do the same to Angus.
Exactly. Too. So they do manage to. Winnie creates a distraction, and they manage to escape. They get the parents out. They escape. And they're like, we have to leave for quite a while now, obviously, because people will be looking for us. But Jesse's whole thing, of course, because he and Winnie have fallen in love, is that he's like, here is like the water from the spring is there.
Go drink it.
Go drink it when you're.
Me forever.
Yeah, drink it when you're 17. Be with me forever. Like it's your choice. But Angus does reiterate to her that this life isn't necessarily exactly what you think it's going to be.
Well, it's a lot of running.
Yes.
It's Twilight.
Yeah.
Like it's like the Cullen family, and like this is just the opposite, where it's Jesse who's telling her, be immortal.
Yeah, as opposed to Winifred being the one who's like, I definitely want to do that. She has a lot more like back and forth about it. And in the end, Winifred decides not to. She decides that maybe she doesn't want to live a life like that forever. And this was, like this love that she had was wonderful while she had it, but that isn't the life for her. So she decides not to drink it. So essentially, you had said this when we were talking about it, is that you were like, this is like Twilight if Bella had a little more common sense.
Yeah, basically. Because like, think about it. Winnie would have had the water.
Yes.
And then she would have been, like, not aging for however long until they came back. And it took them fucking 80 years to come back.
85 years to come back.
It's like, I'm sorry. I've been hanging out here for 85 years. Like, where have you been?
She would have had to go hide in the forest as well.
Exactly. Like, it's like, and she would have been alone doing it, too. Like, that would have sucked.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. So then we flash forward to technically at that time, what's present day. So it's like 2002, because it's like 85 years later. Jesse returns to Treegap, is the town that they're in. Jesse returns to Treegap, and he visits like the old places and stuff. And now most of the woods have been like sort of built up and things, but he does find out by the spring, he finds Winifred's headstone is there because she was buried. She was buried there basically, and he finds out that she lived to be 100 years old, and that she had a husband and children, and she lived a very full life. So he's able to, I think really like appreciate that for her and remember everything between the two of them, but I think he's able to like be happy for her and appreciate that for her. So it really is, it's like Twilight if like Edward weren't so fucking possessive and if Bella had more common sense.
Well, it's like if Bella could kind of see the forest through the trees here a little bit,
she's not good at that.
No,
she's not good at that.
But it's also because like it's like Twilight if like Edward had actually like stayed away.
Yes, in New Moon. If
Yeah.
he left and he were like, it's time for this to be done and over. This isn't safe. It's not a good idea. I need to leave you and whatever. And
we will not come back for 80 years.
Yes.
Like, yeah.
Exactly. And like allowed like that actually to happen and to progress.
But instead he just wore the same shirt for a year. And it was a little dirty. And
Ew.
then went to, have himself killed. Like, okay, drama queen.
Drama queen. Men. Especially the immortal kind. Anyway. Yeah, but I think that's what it is. I think it's because so the book is like 150 pages long. It's essentially a novella. It's very short. It's very easy to get through. So I think that it's hard to like make a whole movie. Like it both is and it's not at the same time. Like it's gonna lag no matter what when you're making it. Like, it was fine.
Like there's not that much substance to the story.
No,
right?
I mean there is like when you get into the themes of it, but you couldn't make that into an entire like 2-hour film.
No, you'd have to add some plot points to it.
Yeah, for sure. So, I do, I appreciate it. It was overall like a fairly faithful adaptation and everything, and that's it. Like, you know, like the cast was really good and stuff, but it just winds up being like a bit of a slog because you're like, bleh, like, you know.
Highly recommend a nap halfway through.
Apparently it's the way to go, and you can wake up and still totally follow the story.
Pretty much.
So anyway. Oh boy. Anyway, we're closing out the month next week with a little bit of a bonus, another adaptation that's come out recently that'll be coming your way that we were able to get into. So stay tuned for that. But I mean, if you guys have any thoughts, if you've like, maybe you've never watched the movie version of this, I feel like people have read the book. If you're listening to this, I feel like you've read the book. If you have any like thoughts about it or like feelings about it, you can let us kind of know about that over on Instagram, TikTok, or Threads at fullybookedca. And you can also check out our Facebook group, which is at facebook.com/groups/book-was-way-better. But until next week, guys, keep on reading.
Thanks, everyone.